All right, let's talk about Hunter Biden. It's getting more interesting. The Wall Street Journal with some in-depth reporting this week on what's actually happening there. And it's not just a matter of this guy who was on drugs, who was just a hot mess. He's appeared to cross some legal lines, though that's under investigation. It's the U.S. Attorney for Delaware. He worked in this office during both the Bush and the Obama administrations and was nominated to run it by Donald Trump. So he's been there under, Dems, Republicans, and so on. This began as a tax inquiry during the Obama administration, and then it widened in 2018 to include possible criminal violations of tax laws, as well as foreign lobbying and money laundering rules that he may have violated. The Wall Street Journal recap was that Hunter Biden, again, he's a lawyer, he's 52, has appeared to, quote, leverage his family's name in business dealings with tycoons in Europe and China, while who were seeking to bolster their credibility at home or gain footholds in the U.S. That the activity accelerated in 2016, the last full year of his father's vice presidential term, and that these foreign tycoons stood to benefit from association with the Biden family name, while their money allowed Hunter Biden to maintain a globe-trotting lifestyle. I mean, we knew about the Burisma, this Ukrainian oil and gas company who was sitting on the board for $50,000 a month. We knew about that. But it goes on about some company that he was allegedly associated with that got, sweet cars and just cash payments that were rolling in, all while Hunter was allegedly peddling the Biden name. You pay me, Arthur. You get access not just to me, you get access to Linda. And Linda is the queen of Del Mar. And if you need to get into, Beluccio's, which is an amazing Bellini's, Linda can set you up, but you just got to pay. You got to pay the daughter first if you want access. So it's like that times about 10 million.
If this was a case, I'll speak of what I know. If this was a Southern District of New York case, a federal prosecutor's case here in New York City, he would definitely be being indicted. The caveat is, being the current son of the current president of the United States, they would definitely want to make sure they have all of their ducks in order. But if he was just a citizen and with the same facts, I'm representing Rudy Giuliani. They're going after Rudy Giuliani for something very similar, the Foreign Agents Registration Act. That's all they're going after Rudy for. It's just he didn't fill out a form, but it's no secret. They broke down, I didn't break down his door. He opened his door at 6 o'clock in the morning, he let all the feds in and took all his electronic devices. So they take this stuff very, very seriously. And Megyn, I looked into doing my research for Kelly's court.
Good man.
Some of the allegations, and there's a lot of tax situations. So they if a company buys you a car, that's income to you. You need to report that. It doesn't appear that happened here. They bought him an electric car called a Fisker, which, ranges from not that expensive for a car to very expensive for a car. I don't know what model he got. And there are other perks along the way and just stuff that doesn't smell right. When you're a lobbyist, and, he's allowed to be a lobbyist if he registers and goes through all of the proper channels and says, listen, yes, I do have access to the White House under the Obama administration. My dad happens to be the vice president. That does not mean anyone is going to do anything improper, unethical, illegal, et cetera, et cetera. And here are all these forms that are transparency forms, basically, so people know what I'm doing. And here's the money I'm making. And it can't be contingent on him actually achieving the goal that they want. If you do it the right way, it's not a crime. But it does not appear that he did these things the right way. Whether they'll have the guts to treat him like they would treat a typical citizen, the son of the president of the United States of America, that remains to be seen.
Okay, so now Arthur mentions this FARA and whether they're going to charge him under this. Like, was he lobbying for a foreign country and sort of peddling access? The New York Times has pointed out that Hunter Biden had a familiarity with FARA and a desire to avoid triggering it. There was at least one email in April of 2014 where Hunter Biden indicated that Burisma, again, the Ukrainian oil and gas company on whose board he sat for $50,000 a month, given his absolutely zero experience in oil and gas, I'm sure he was a great contributor, that they, quote, need to know in no uncertain terms that we will not and cannot intervene directly with domestic policymakers, and that we need to abide by FARA and any other U.S. laws in the strictest sense across the board. And to me, that just is such a classic CYA. But will it save him, Mark?
Well, that becomes a more challenging charge. How about start with the really low-hanging fruit? He makes a certain amount of money. Did he pay taxes on that money? I don't care who your father is. You either pay taxes or you didn't. Then the defense becomes, well, I was knee deep in addiction. My head was all over the place. It wasn't criminal. I thought it was being taken care of when it wasn't, which is why I hear the feds are interviewing people about when he was using drugs, what his state of mind was, because they anticipate that as defense. The second thing, though, is this is different. Normally, we don't get to go into court and defend someone based upon the fact that this is all political. It starts off with, well, that is a fair argument to make under the circumstances. Now, whether it's true or not, who knows? So the feds really have to have a solid case, which is why I will end with how I started. Go after him for tax evasion if you've got him on that. That doesn't lie. That's
so
not subject to argument.
On the subject of it being political, it's going to be a tough argument to make since this investigation began while his dad was the sitting vice president and then continued under a Republican administration, and now has continued while his dad is the sitting president. Like, that's going to be a tough one to make.
I don't like that part, but I don't like that, Megyn. I mean, you're a lawyer. We're former prosecutors. Like, it doesn't take 8 years to bring a case. Like, you either did it, and you may need some time to do an investigation. But why is it going on through all of these years? That doesn't sit well with me regarding how our system is working in this particular case. That's
true. But can I ask you a question about the tax evasion, Arthur? Because there are reports now, and I think he's confirmed them, that he paid $1 million to the feds in back taxes. And the reporting this week was that that was done basically to try to stave off criminal charges. Like, I was a bad boy. I was a hot mess. I fixed it. I paid what I owed. And then he had to take out a loan allegedly to pay that. Though there are reports he may be worth tens of millions of dollars, unconfirmed by us. So I don't know whether that's true. In any event, he did pay the $1 million in back taxes. So does that end it? If you had a client who came to you being charged with tax evasion, does that, as a practical matter, put it to bed?
Well, you have to cut that deal with the prosecutor, right? That's what's called prosecutorial discretion. So, of course, that's the goal I'm trying to achieve. After I sit with his accountant and a forensic accountant, and we find out, okay, yeah, he definitely owes this money. I then go in and try to use my bald head and charm and say, look, he's going to borrow money from grandma and grandpa and uncle and aunt, and he's going to pay all this money back now. Yes, he was addicted to drugs. Yes, he didn't know what he was doing. I could verify that. I have documentation about all of that. This was not an intentional act. It was a negligent act at worst, and he's got the money to pay back the government. So why don't we save everyone's time, effort, and energy? And you can audit them every year for the next decade to make sure it doesn't happen again. But let's not bring a criminal prosecution, and you pray that it works.
And as the prosecutor, I say, I love your bald head and I love your passion, but I'm not making any guarantees. And what Arthur then would still do is tell his client, listen, you owe that money anyway, pay it. And then let's hope that that'll cause them to use the prosecutorial
Can't hurt. What about, Mark, you mentioned the fact that this U.S. attorney is calling witnesses, I read this too, in front of a grand jury that's investigating this, who can speak to Hunter Biden's drug use. So why would the prosecutor looking into this be calling witnesses who can speak to his drug use in front of the grand jury as opposed to just interviewing them privately and saying, what should I be thinking about? Was he really out of control? You know what I mean? Like, why would you call them in front of the grand jury?
The direct answer is I don't know. I need to know more about their strategy, why they're doing that. But clearly they're doing it because they, one of the obvious defenses is going to be, okay, well, if I owed that money, my head was not in the right place. I'm trying to negate the mens rea, the state of mind that I intentionally chose not to pay the government money that I thought that I owed them. So I think that's going to be.
They may also be calling him in front of the grand jury. I had a case this week where someone came in and the prosecutor wants to speak to them, and I said, "You're not speaking to them." But my client really doesn't have the basis to invoke their Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination because I don't really think they've committed a crime. So you have to have a good faith basis to invoke the Fifth. You can't just do it for no reason. So I said, you want to hear what this person has to say? Put him in the grand jury and roll the dice is what they're going to say in the grand jury, but you're not speaking to them beforehand. And if they really believe this person has done nothing wrong, they may put them in the grand jury. And in a case with with these types of political implications, as a prosecutor, you want to say, look, I put it all out there and the citizens decided. But as Mark and you and I know, if they really want him indicted, they put one FBI agent in there and maybe one financial agent in there, and he's indicted in 15 minutes and the case would move on.
But I just thought of something.
Yeah.
I actually thought of something. As Arthur was speaking, we're so used to the grand jury just doing whatever the heck the feds, want, whatever the prosecutors want, and they'll indict a ham sandwich, all that. But maybe there's some grand jury in this universe, and maybe it's this one, that may not indict. And so maybe the issue needs to be brought before them that, by the way, here's his drug problem, but it did not affect. And maybe that's become an issue, or they're concerned that would become an issue. And maybe somehow they're doing that to help increase the chances of getting an indictment.
Well, the big enchilada here would be any involvement of President Biden. That's as much as we care about Hunter Biden. The question is, did Joe Biden get any of this money? Was there any cooperation? Was access provided? Right. He did have a meeting with, I think, some of these Burisma officials, which they chose not to document in the White House logs when he was vice president. So there's some smoke, though no fire yet around him. But Peter Schweitzer, who's been doing a good job on this and on all things Biden related, he's the president of the Government Accountability Institute. He says there are several things. And one of them is the probe could implicate the president, saying Hunter Biden, if he was doing these deals, and he was at precisely the same time that his father was the named point person on U.S. policy toward Ukraine, that did happen. He said, look, that's at minimum a coincidence, but if it was more directly orchestrated or producing results for Burisma, then this could become Joe Biden's problem. And they've got as their main exhibit now the infamous laptop that we were told was disinformation by 50 security officials, by the New York Times, by Politico, by every public, by NPR, I think it was, or was it PBS? One of them. It's kind of the same thing. That came out and said, we don't cover stories that are meaningless. It was NPR. We don't cover stories that are meaningless, that have absolutely no import. Meaning the laptop. The same laptop that the New York Times now acknowledges was legit. That's the basis for a lot of the FBI's investigation. That could be the basis for criminal charges. Is NPR turning around and apologizing, acknowledging its mistake? Of course not. So, Arthur, your thoughts on how, if at all, they would capture the president in this?
Well, I have to make this just a little personal. I'm going to bring it back to Rudy Giuliani. So the morning that they went to Mayor Giuliani's house, I was on the phone with him, and the subpoena was for all of his electronic devices. The warrant was for all his electronic devices. So he handed them all over. It was without any drama. And then they pick up from the mayor's home desk. They go, "What's this?" And he goes, "Oh, that is a cloned copy of Hunter Biden's laptop." It doesn't say it on there. It's not written on there. He just holds up like one of those little hard drive, and then he tells them that's what it is. And they put it down and they left it there. How do they know that there wasn't all kinds of criminality on that? I mean, he could have said that about the phone. Oh, this is Hunter Biden's phone, and put it down. So it just shows you the culture inside of law enforcement. And this was not that long ago, months ago, that they didn't want anything to do with that. Oh, Hunter Biden, we don't want anything to do with it. I mean, obviously, to Mark's point about why about a grand jury, they are in the state, the tiny state that adores the Bidens, and it would be naive to say they're not going to do their best in their subconscious not to go after the president. There would have to be such hardcore black and white connection with Biden for them to go after it. Megyn, I was in court in Manhattan yesterday. There were protests in front of the Manhattan DA's office because they basically have dropped the case against President Trump. And from the little I know, but it's a little, but it's enough, there was a lot more, there was some teeth in that potential indictment than what we've heard about President Biden. So no one's really running to indict a president of the United States, past or present.
Yeah.
You would the kind of evidence that would rock your world more than that slap did. I mean, it would be like, oh my goodness, smoking gun stuff.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.